And here we are again with All Things Baseball podcast with your hosts, John and Johnny. And we've had a lot of great guests lately. And,
Yeah.
this one doesn't disappoint either.
It was great. Austin David Sharp, Prep Baseball, Alabama, grew up playing against Austin at the rival high school, and his dad actually was coaching also, David Sharp, who we also had on, and man, they were fantastic. I mean, talk about knowing your stuff about high school baseball in Alabama, like
I don't think there's anybody on the planet knows more about high school aged baseball than these two guys.
yeah,
You're talking about rankings, you're talking about metrics, you're talking about all sorts of content, events, showcases, scouting. I mean, they talk to probably every coach and college scout in the area. And then, like I think David said, St. John's to, Oregon. You're talking about coaches from all over the country that
yeah,
come to Alabama or want to learn about Alabama players.
yeah. No, I mean, I really found it interesting when they started to break down like how they weight their high school rankings. And just what goes into that. Like, I there's so many great teams in Alabama, and a loss or two here doesn't discredit their ability to beat higher end teams. Because a lot of these teams, we checked out the schedule or the power rankings, excuse me, and I mean the competition that some of these schools are facing, just crazy.
Yeah, and we got into it. So
Yeah.
let's.
Yeah, with Austin David Sharp. Here we are.
All right, so we're back here at All Things Baseball podcast, and we're with David and Austin Sharp. We know these guys from Huntsville baseball. Welcome, guys.
Well, thank you for having us on. We're pumped to be on just to talk some baseball. And, it's pretty cool to, we bump heads again, I guess you can say, after all these years of being on the field together here in Huntsville.
Absolutely. I mean, Johnny and I, big fans of you guys from way back. We obviously friendly competitors, Johnny and Austin, and then just watching you coach against Grissom, Johnny's alma mater. Amazing that you've got father son here talking baseball. We're pumped too. How did you guys get involved with Prep Baseball Alabama?
I'll get us started if that's good with you, Austin.
Yeah.
I have a friend that I was able to coach with on an international stage that is a part owner of Prep Baseball Report, and he had mentioned to me years and years ago that, man, we would love to start Prep Baseball Report in Alabama, and we would love for you to be the guy. Well, to make a long story short, I told him, hey, I'm teaching and coaching at Huntsville High School. I've got 23 years in. I would be an idiot not to get to 25 and get my retirement. So thankfully, they held that job for me for about a year and a half. I was able to get my 25 years in the State Department and draw retirement, and then took over doing this in 2018. Austin worked with us for about 3 years part-time because he was still in school. Right. And then he came on with us part-time in full-time in January of 2021. He is now the state director in Alabama. I'm the Deep South supervisor over the southern states. So it's as you know, it's fun to work alongside my son, and he does a tremendous job for us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Austin.
Yeah, I obviously name's Austin Sharp. I graduated at Huntsville 2016. Played baseball all my life. Like Johnny, been around the game for forever, and was fortunate enough to play baseball after college at Calhoun Community College in Decatur for 2 years, and was an average baseball player, but could catch and wanted to stay in the game. And after Calhoun, I went to be a student in Auburn to be a student assistant, and then they found out I could catch, so they handed me a mitt and said go to the bullpen, and from then on I was the bullpen catcher for the next 2 years. But and graduated in December of 2020, and then was able to get a full-time job, like you said, in January 2021, and then been full go with Prep Baseball ever since.
That's phenomenal. So you caught Tanner Burns and Cody Greenhill and all these guys that we remember from high school that you guys faced there at Auburn. Had some tremendous arms at Auburn for sure. Who was the guy, Johnny, the lefty, that gave you fits at Hewitt
Oh boy,
Trussville?
I think I got the golden sombrero against him.
From Hewitt Trussville, Skipper, Carson
Carson
Skipper.
That change up is real.
Unreal. Yeah,
Johnny used to say, man, because Johnny was a switch hitter, and he'd say, hey, I thought I had an advantage, being a switch hitter, and then that guy Carson comes in and throws that nasty changeup, and he had you befuddled a few times.
oh, it was gross. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's what we love about talking baseball with you guys. We share a lot of commonality, but you guys have really taken this prep baseball Alabama to just tremendous levels. We were listening. I got off of work today, and I knew that you guys had the Around the State, and I couldn't listen to all of it, but thank you for the shout out on that too. But I mean, just to hear the rankings and to get familiar with what's going on in the state, who's playing who, for anybody that is trying to get more into Alabama baseball, there's just so many things that you guys bring to the table. Tell us a little bit about some of the things that you're doing now with baseball prep Alabama, and what we can look forward to.
Yeah, I can take this one. The spring personally for me is my favorite time. Obviously, it's a full-time job, with the summer being most of the workload with our events, but obviously the spring is for the high school season in the state of Alabama. And my favorite part, obviously, I think I can speak for all four of us. We love high school baseball, and we're both just fans of high school baseball in Alabama. And that's what I am. I enjoy going out and watching, because I'm able to go and see the best players in the state of Alabama and the best games. So right now we're going out and watching games, and we have rankings on our website, like you said, team rankings, where we rank the top 10 teams in Class 7A through 1A for the state of Alabama, and then have a Power 25 poll where we rank the top 25 teams regardless of classification. We're out at games promoting players, videoing and putting out some of the top players to try to get those players, trying to be I guess kind of the main thing that would kind of summarize what we are, is kind of a bridge between the player and the college coach. And we try to use social media as one avenue to kind of connect the players and the college coaches, videoing, when we're out at games, videoing players, promoting them on social media. So right now we're kind of in a, just going to watch the best teams and best players in the state of Alabama, and promoting those players and teams on our social media channels, on our website. And there's much more that we do, but that's just kind of a brief synopsis of it, kind of right now in the spring.
So are you guys, when you're going to these games, are you actually recording some of the, we see a lot of the highlights of some of the players that you're scouting and everything. Are you going to the game and you're recording them, or do you have a people behind the scenes as well that are helping you out and sending you all this great content?
Sometimes we wish we had someone doing that work for us, because it can get really hectic. But no, when we go, we're doing all the videoing. We're doing all of the radar gun on pictures. We're editing videos. We add our logo on there. We clip it, we edit it. We, type up that tweet with some valuable information for college coaches. We want to make sure that, they see, if we can, we want to be to the hitter's open side. That's not always the case. But we do try to get to their open side when possible. But we have made it a little easier on ourselves this year. In that when we went to games before this year, we held our phone up and we videoed just about every pitch. And so there was a lot of delete, go back, delete. Well, now, due to Austin being a little smarter than I am, we now have a camera that we set up, and we're able to get and use a memory card, and we're able to set that up, and not where we're having to use our phone all the time. We're getting clips from that camera, and then we can download it to our phone standing right there and get that tweet out. So, we're getting, when things are going well, we're getting a tweet out maybe a minute 2 minutes after it happens, it does seem like, you'll get a double, a home run, a triple, a double, and it all happens back to back to back to back. And we do
Right.
get backed up a little bit sometimes at games, but yes, we're the ones that are out there doing it. Now we have a couple scouts in the state. We've got one in the Mobile area, a couple in the Dothan area, and there's another guy based out of North Alabama that helps us as well. But it's a team effort, and everybody's involved with that.
No.
That's awesome. So I wanted to kind of break down. So when you're at some of these games, do you guys have a few players that you like to highlight? Or, do you know who might be committed or who might not be committed yet? And kind of how does that process work when you're looking to evaluate players?
Yeah, going into games, I feel like we hold a lot of events in the summer. We go out and watch a lot of baseball, so I feel like we have a pretty good pulse on the state of Alabama, who the best players are, best teams are. So yes, we do know some of the best players going into games. But one of my favorite parts about the spring and my job is, when we go to games, finding a player that I previously had not known about, who is, one of the better players on the team, and getting to learn more about him. And just that's kind of one of my favorite things, is finding somebody that I didn't know, and kind of, starting kind of following his journey from that point.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
I could imagine that's pretty exciting. Grow, from 15 to 16 and on up. When you see some of these kids, whether it's their skill level that increased or their size and their power, you're right there, and you get to see, these players as they develop, and that's got to be pretty exciting to see.
It's a stats driven world in baseball. I mean, it is, but you go and, you see a 6-hole hitter that, as Austin said, we didn't know about. He's 0 for 3 with, with a tough punch out where he works an 8-pitch at bat, and then he flies out to left to the track and he lines out to second base. That's an 0 for 3, but that's a guy that put together 3 at bats. And, and there's something to see there. And so those out, and, a college coach reaches out about this guy, tell me about this guy you tweeted out about. That's pretty neat about our job there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Go ahead, John.
tough to, like when you go up against a tougher pitcher and you do put up an 0 for 3 spot in the game, but like you said, like they're all quality at bats. Like you weren't, popping out at the first baseman. Quality at bats where you're, make good contact, and that I think that can get lost on, somebody who may be coming to watch a player, and then it's like, well, he didn't go 3 for 3, he went 0 for 3, and but when you take a really close eye and you follow this player, you can kind of see that journey, like it can add up.
And that's kind of one of, being at the games is obviously very important to be able to see that, because you look in, we have Game Changer, we're following all these teams. You look in a box score and you see a 0 for 3. Well, if I was at that game and I know what that 0 for 3 was, it was a line out and a fly out to deep left field. That's something that, being at the games is probably obviously one of a big important piece to it.
Definitely.
Yeah, I would imagine that coaches aren't, coaches that are talking to you guys or scouting players, they're not just interested in just the stats, but like, can this kid play at this level? And I think you guys, having seen and seeing so much baseball, so much competitive baseball, and being able to compare, you have this unique perspective that very few people in the state of Alabama could have. I mean, you just have all this, experience with players facing other pitchers. I mean, do you guys spend a lot of time examining a player, saying, well, against this pitcher versus another player versus this pitcher?
Absolutely, we do. I mean, that's, and that's one of the reasons Austin mentioned about going to these big games, because we want to see what these guys are doing against an 86-mile-an-hour left-handed pitcher that can spin a breaking ball, or, a high-velocity right-handed pitcher. We want to see that. But, it's just, and you mentioned the coaches, the college coaches and what they're looking for. They could care less if a guy hits a laser to left center field that goes for a triple, or a laser right at the shortstop. The result doesn't matter. What is important to those college coaches, and this may be something that we touch on later as we move through this, but, with what we do in the summer, we're able to to gauge some metrics, an exit velocity off of a bat, that is important. If you're 98 off the bat, that doesn't make you a good hitter, but it does say that you've got some power. Now,
Right.
when we go to these high school games, then we're going to be able to see, does that 98 mile per hour exit velocity, does that translate over to games when a guy's spinning breaking balls and it's not BP that you're seeing right down the middle every time? Do both of those things play together?
Right.
And that's, I think I think that's a good mixture of what we see, gameplay versus metrics and numbers off the bat.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Speaking of metrics, just looking on your site and just seeing all the different things that the coaches are using, that has to be. I mean, even when Johnny and Austin were playing, I don't remember Visual Edge as much. I knew it was around, and I just it's hard to get my head around all the different tools that they have to measure, a baseball player.
Yeah, it's kind of the way of the world now. I know, and I think Johnny could probably say that. I didn't know what an exit velocity was in 2016, and fast forward, 9 years, and we've got TrackMan and Blast, Visual Edge, Vault, all the different things that we use to collect data and metrics at our events. It's and there's no really right or wrong. It's just being able to adapt and kind of combine the two with the data side, and then obviously like we were just talking about, can it translate into game? Can you get the job done in the bottom of the seventh, move the runner over from second to third base with no outs, and kind of just combining those two.
And I'll say this before we move on to the next question, but Austin will remember this. Our first was at UAH in 2018. It was the first event we ever did. And we got exit velocity off of a tee using a pocket radar.
We thought we were doing a lot too. We thought we were doing
a lot. Yes. They ran the 60 hand time. We got, let's see. I'm trying to think of other things.
Pitching velocity.
Pitching velocity was just a gun,
Right.
And so it's in a short 7-year period, it's a complete 180-degree turn from what we were doing. I mean, we're getting exit velocities off of a tee, and now we've got the TrackMan unit that gets every ball off the bat in BP, and
Right.
it's fantastic. And we like it because it takes us out of the equation. Now someone can't say, well, you just didn't like my kid and you said he was 86 off the barrel. We can't doctor those TrackMan numbers. We can't doctor those bald numbers. We can't
Right.
doctor those blast numbers. It is what it is.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a level playing field. I think that's a great point, because I do remember that. I remember, well, which way are you facing the gun off the tee? Is it coming to me or going away? I can't, all those conversations we had, 7, 8 years ago. It was like, oh man, which one do you want me to do? You want it coming to me or you want me going away? I do remember those conversations. So I'm glad that that's been taken out of the equation for sure.
You'd be Happy Gilmore and into a sophomore.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. Get the best reading. Get the best reading.
No question.
Nice one.
I think we're one of the areas, I know as a parent, we used to look at the showcases and we used to say, okay, which are the showcases, that are worthwhile? Where's my son's level? Where should I put my money towards, that type of thing. And looking at your site and looking at, how you guys do it, I think it's the best that I've seen so far. So people have a better idea of, what they should be looking at, based on their talent level and and their age and where they're at. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. You may take it, Austin?
Yeah, you got it.
Okay. When a player comes to one of our events, number one, we do feel like that they're priced accordingly, because we understand that's the first thing that people notice is how much is it going to cost. We all, as consumers, that's one of the first things. How much is this? How much is that? Well, we do feel like there is a lot of value in the money that's paid when you come to one of our showcases. When a typical showcase for us would be something like, players get there, they get a shirt, they get a hat, they get a profile photo for their profile, which you mentioned on our website. We get their official height and weight, with shoes off, hat off, all that. Which is great because, these kids that make their own profiles, they may list themselves at 6'1", 210. They come in, they're 5'11", $186. You know what I mean? And so
Right.
it gives the college, again, we go back to that. It's for the college coaches. It gives the college coaches a valid measurement. And we also get their grip strength, how strong they are. Obviously that
Right.
measures well down the road. I mean, you want to know how strong someone is. We run the 60. They get a 10-yard split, a 30-yard split, and a 60-yard split. That's off of our bald system. There are 2 series of jumps that they do. They do a max vertical jump, and then they do what's called a 5-jump RSI. Obviously, the vertical jump is 1 max vert, and the RSI jump measures. They go up and down 5 times. It measures their explosiveness, and how quick they are off the ground, which is again measuring athletic ability. Then they'll go through their offensive workout, where they get loose in a cage. They come on the field to take their on-field batting practice. Everything that we do is videoed. We video them running, we video them hitting, we video them defense, and then pitchers we video them as well. But hitters, when they go through an offensive evaluation, we have the TrackMan where we're measuring estimated distance, we're measuring launch angle, we're measuring exit velocities. Every ball off the bat. We have blast sensors that measure hand speed, bat speed, rotational acceleration. Because I heard you talked about rotational acceleration on a couple of podcasts ago. You said, I don't even know what rotational acceleration is, but
Right.
that's where we get that.
Right.
And then when obviously we go to defense, we are videoing them. We're watching, we're veloing their throws either across the diamond or from the outfield. Catchers get a pop time. And one other thing that we do at our events that I think is really, really valuable is that every player that comes to our events will get a scouting report from that event. We talk arm strength. We talk, what is the offensive approach? Is it a 2-hole type, middle of the field line drive hitter, or is it a 4-hole hitter with, some pull side juice? We take notes about their arm strength on the outfield, how their glove works, how their feet work. So all of that goes into play. I did forget to mention the visual edge. We give a visual edge test that measures, things coming at you, things going away from you, how quick you can pick things up. Again, that's all relative to baseball. You mentioned earlier, so there is a lot that goes on at our events. And then we wrap them up with pitchers throwing a simulated bullpen. Some of our events, we have gameplay, but most of them are simulated bullpens where, again, we have the TrackMan there. We're able to get, obviously, miles per hour, spin rates, induced vertical break, all release height and how far the release is out in front of the mound. So there, I mean, a lot of people tell us, man, that was a well-oiled machine. But let me tell you something, man, there is a lot going on there, and you'd be surprised at how many times we get in panic mode because,
technology is good,
yeah, technology's good until it goes out. So, but yeah, we've had success with that, and again, we feel like there's a lot of there's a lot of value in coming to one of our showcases, or we obviously wouldn't be doing what we're doing.
And obviously, outside of all the stuff, the operations stuff, we try to stay as true as we can, saying, if we're going to offer you this, we're going to deliver it, and trying to do it in the most efficient manner as possible. There's, if you have a 60 kid event, there's no point in being there for 7 or 8 hours. We try to, get the players through the event as quickly and efficiently as possible while still, making them feel like they got their shake, and got to feel like they were able to showcase their abilities, in all the stuff that they go through.
And I'll say this as well, and for this question, and to us, as important, if not more important to us, is delivering what we're supposed to deliver after the event. If we have an event on a Sunday, on Monday, we already have content coming out from that. And for the next 10 to 14 days, we will have content rolling out from that event. Like, leaderboards, the top 5 60-yard dash, the top 5 fastballs. We release a TrackMan file. I mean, no need to go into all that, but we get all of that content out 10 to 14 days afterwards, including the videos. And again, it's just a resource for, number one, these players, but it is a resource for the college coaches that they're seeing all this pumped out and on their profiles.
Yeah, I saw on the site, Prep Baseball Alabama. I saw like who's throwing above 85. There was like the most recent guys throwing above 85. A couple of guys throwing 93. So I found that fascinating. That you could, if you're so inclined, you could literally follow some of the best players in Alabama and what they're doing and how they're being measured. It was fascinating to see that up. Like just so up to the date information. One of the things that I think that college coaches probably would really love to see, since so many of the great players play shortstop or they play an elite position, that 10-yard split. So I would imagine that if someone's like a 1.7 or higher, then they probably go, well, we like this kid, but he's not going to stick at shortstop because maybe he doesn't have the quickness. So I find those type of stats fascinating, that you're tracking them so that a college coach could say, yeah, we like him, but he may not stick at shortstop because that's not a good enough stat.
And in addition to the 10-yard split, I think the 5 RSI jump is a important one as well. That measures kind of that quickness and the burst. So
and I'll add to that from the catcher position, because that's what I played, and Austin played catcher too. But you get a catcher that's 203 to 209 pop time, but then his arm strength is 72 to second base. Well, that tells you, number one, he's got a clean, quick transfer behind the plate with accurate throws. And that arm strength is probably going to improve, which means that pop time is going to improve as well as the arm strength that's better. So there's a lot of different ways college coaches look at that.
Yeah, that's a great point. Johnny, you were a catcher too. So tell me a little bit about what you see when you're looking at the site for catchers. Anything stick out?
Just like you mentioned, I think it is important, like that progression we talked about earlier with a player's journey. Like, you're not gonna it's great when you have a 201 or 201 to 209 pop time and your arm strength is lower than the national average or class average, but then over time you can kind of see, like, once that ramps up, the pop time should lower. Generally, if everything's staying clean and consistent, that's really cool to see. When you split up those workouts, do you run into any challenges when you're devoting more time to, like infield, outfield, and then saying, all right, now we're kind of running into this time slot? Because I remember, and I'm sure you guys been through all the showcases growing up too, where it was like, man, it's like I was at this showcase and I didn't feel like I got to spend this much time or devote this much time. And I appreciate you guys being transparent about, what you guys offer and, going through that process of your showcase, because I think, for anybody listening right now, growing up for us, it was a lot different process. And just kind of like, how do you devote and, figure out that time? Like, all right, I need to be here for this time for these positions. Can you speak on that a little bit?
I will. And there is a lot of planning and organization on the front end, as you can imagine.
Yes.
At the beginning of a workout, I mean, it's crazy the amount of in-depth preparation that we do. I mean, things like we put them in 3 groups. We put them in groups of all left-handed hitters and then the catchers, because we don't want to have to move, because you have to slightly offset the TrackMan when they're taking their offensive BP so that it gets better reading. So for a left-handed batter, it's sitting slightly, the TrackMan is sitting slightly behind the right-handed hitter's box, and vice versa for a right-handed hitter. So it gets better path, better flight of the ball off the bat. And so what we do is we try to get them, we don't want to spend all of our time moving equipment around and wasting time doing that. So, I think to answer your question, we also try to use as many facilities that have 2 or more fields. That way we can staff it with maybe let's stick the infielders taking, they're going to start by taking their on-field BP, get their offensive evaluation. We're going to send outfielders over to the second field. They're going to start by getting their defensive evaluations. And then the catchers and the left-handed hitters, we may start them. My wife is the one that administers our visual edge test. And so we may start them up there. So that allows us to send we could send like 30 kids to the visual edge, and they'll also be getting height and weight, grip strength, and all that there. So that lets us get 30 kids. Let's say we have a 90 kid event. That lets us get 30 kids there, 30 kids on the defense, and 30 kids on the offense. That sort of makes it move really, really smooth. And we do think that we give kids an opportunity to showcase, their stuff. Obviously, if a kid gets in there and he swings it 9 pitches and he only hits 1, we can't let him take 50 swings because then we're going to get way behind. But we also aren't going to shun that kid to the side and say, well, tough luck, man. You hit 1, tough luck. We'll get him out, let him take a break, talk to him and say, hey, man, just relax. You're okay. And then we might get him in later. So, we feel like that we've sort of got the pulse on running a showcase. And again, that's relative with the TrackMan and all the technology working all the time. Austin, would you agree with what I just said?
Yeah, 100. Yeah, I think just kind of as we've kind of run events more and more each summer, we've kind of learned new things, kind of trial and error, and we've kind of gotten it down to a point where we know kind of if you have 30 kids in this station, it should take this amount of time and should be and map it out like you say before an event, map it out and are usually pretty on time with the being able to run the event in an efficient time.
Now, this is no joke. Today is March the 10th, and we legitimately started planning our Yellowhammer games today, and it's June the 17th and 18th. Austin?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we legitimately started planning that event today, getting things organized, making sure we're getting stuff ordered on time. So there's a great deal of preparation on the front end.
That's
and
incredible.
how long, like in that process, for that's your pinnacle event. Like, how long does that process take before you're creating Team Alabama, where you're then facing other states and things like that? Like, is that part of the process? Going to can you explain that a little bit? How that Team Alabama is created from these showcases?
Yeah, so the Team Alabama, I think you're referring to, is from the Future Games, which is prep baseball's. It's the marquee event of that we run on the national stage. It's probably one of the more unique events too as well. It's the future. There's a senior Future Games, a Future Games, and a junior Future Games, which all run on the same week, July 22nd through the 27th at Lake Point over in Atlanta. But we select. We're bringing over 3 teams, one senior Future Game, one Future Game team, and a junior Future Game team. All of those players are uncommitted, as is every other player that comes from any other state. So we're bringing our best uncommitted rising seniors for our senior Future Games team. We're bringing our the top uncommitted players in Alabama for our junior Future Games team, and then the younger group, obviously they're uncommitted, but we're bringing over the top players as well. And all 3 of those teams are Team Alabama, and we select those players based off of the players who attend our summer events that we released yesterday. Each kid that we took last year, they all came to an event last summer, and that's the selection process for how we form Team Alabama. And the Future Games, if you're a fan of baseball, it would be cool to come over to for you guys later in the summer. It's every player there is uncommitted. I think we got close to 400 college coaches last year. It's Oregon, it's Nebraska, it's Florida State, Vanderbilt, LSU, any college coach that you can imagine. And it's every kid there is uncommitted. It's kind of a feeding ground for uncommitted players, and it also runs according to the new recruiting rule, with college coaches not being able to have contact with prospects until August 1st going into their junior season. So that Future Games, that college coaches are able to see those players, and then August 1st date hits, and and it's game on for those college coaches.
It is truly. I know when he says we got to almost 400 coaches last year, I think it was like 384. And that number's easy to throw out there, and people are probably thinking like, yeah, right. No, it's legitimate. There have been people that have gone over there and like, man, I can't believe this, and it's pretty daunting for a kid that's going to be a junior. He gets up there and he's taking batting practice because they get a pro style workout followed by games.
Right.
He's up there taking batting practice, and the head coach at Oregon's behind, and he's shoulder to shoulder with the head coach at Tennessee and the head coach at Alabama and Auburn and St. John's and Oregon State. I mean, it's the who's who of college coaches there. It's an unbelievable event.
Yeah, I mentioned to you guys offline that Johnny and I are coaching the middle school team, and so that's when that season ends. Like, we're members, we log in for the rankings, we log in and get a lot of great content as members, but we can't wait to really dive in and go and see some of these events and watch ththese players a little bit closer, because there's so many great baseball players in our state. And you guys have just a front row seat, to these kids, and you can see how hard they're working and what they did last year versus this year. And we're envious. We love the fact that you guys have this, and that you have all this knowledge, from just collecting it over a period of time. I was wondering, what kind of interaction do the pro scouts have? With you guys, or with I mean, I'm sure they're members. I'm sure they're following a lot of the information. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Like, what is it like dealing with the pro scouts?
The pro scouts are, obviously, we don't hear from those guys near as much as we hear from the college coaches, because their scope is so much smaller, as to players they're looking at.
Right.
But yes, I mean, we had somebody there at our January event in Hartselle. We've had a couple that were at our tournaments early. No, more than a couple, but we had probably 10 or 12 that was at our kickoff classic to kick off the year this year, the first weekend of the season. And they're always asking us, do you know when this guy's throwing? Do you know when this guy, where's he playing?
Right.
And just they're asking us about, and what are our thoughts on them? And we hear from agents. There's one agency that reaches out all the time about two different kids in a younger class here in Alabama right now that we're just trying to get ahead of it now. So yes, we do, but it's not near as much as we do with the college coaches. But again, because they're on a good year, Alabama's having maybe 2, 3, 4 prep guys that are legitimate, high draft picks on a good year. So they're focusing in on those guys, and 2025 is no exception. There's 3, maybe 4 guys that could be on the board really early this year in the June draft.
That's incredible. Yeah, no, I think that is a great testament, not to only y'all, but everybody at Prep Baseball who helps along and has all these coaches going and watching the showcase and the event. I think that's incredible. And I'm thinking there has to be some overlap. I want to switch gears a little bit more for the player side, and what a college coach is looking for. But do you guys get to see, when you see that like progression of a player's journey, and where they're uncommitted and where they're maybe at the point of where they can be committed, but it's maybe in some stressful situations, and then just not making, they're not going 2 for 2 or 3 for 3, but they're putting together great at bats and making great contact, and maybe they're undersized or whatnot. Do you guys get to have interactions with the college coaches, or what are those conversations like when you're trying to discuss a player and how you've seen them?
Yeah, college coaches reach out to us, pretty frequently. Every week, it'll be, a college coach, a JUCO coach from Mississippi reaches out and wants a 2026 left-handed pitcher. Who are the best, junior left-handed pitchers in your class? And and you tell them, give them a list of guys, and what do you think of this guy? What do you think of this guy? And just kind of bouncing back thoughts and what you see, because everybody's different. Everybody sees different things when they go to games, and it's the same, from the Division I level, reaching out, and obviously they're looking at the highest level of players in the state, but just kind of having that dialogue, being able to bounce back ideas off of each other, and just giving them as much feedback as possible to help them allow it to be easier for them to make a decision, and giving them providing them with more feedback for the players that they reach out for.
Yeah. And I want to say this too. You hear this and people probably think, oh, that so and so's just saying this. They want to know the makeup of a kid too.
Right.
They want to know that. That's important. There's a kid at an SEC school right now that was on our Future Games team about 4 years ago, and his makeup was absolutely off the charts. And whenever we scored a run, he's the first one out of the dugout, and he's a good player. He's playing outfield now. Used to play on the infield, and he's at one of the better SEC schools in the conference. And he was a perfect fit for them. So Austin mentioned it. People are looking for different things.
Right.
And I'm not. This wasn't Tennessee, but Tennessee plays a completely different brand of ball than maybe in Auburn or somebody else. Tennessee's they're going back to the old LSU days of guerrilla ball. I mean, they're leaving the park 5 times a night.
Right.
So they're all looking for different type players.
Right.
That's great. And you guys have the unique perspective that when you see these players, it's you can kind of see, like, if they're undersized, those conversations are a lot different. Then it's easier for those conversations to be where a guy is, is 6'4", 6'5", just absolute animal. Whereas more of an undersized guy, you guys get to see that and convey a message to the coaches like, hey, this kid is the real deal, and you don't take his size for a disadvantage. Like he's something else too. So and we've seen him in SEC ball. Like there's some out there that are just unreal talents.
There's one kid who Reese Jones, a 2026 infielder from Spain Park. He's probably 5'8", 150 pounds. He's obviously very athletic. He's a good runner, but it's probably not, he's probably not putting up Eric Hines type numbers, 105 exit velocities. But you go watch him in a game 2 or 3 times, and you'll see. I mean, he is easy to fall in love with. He's an absolute gamer, and we've been able to follow him for the past 3 or 4 years, ever since he was on our Junior Future Games team. He's got what you talk about having the it factor, and he's got the it factor, and those are kind of the guys. He just committed to UAB about a month ago, and that's kind of what you're talking about, kind of comparing do you want a guy who has all the tools, but does it translate to in game, or do you want the guy who when the game's on the line, do you want him up to the plate, and just kind of comparing and contrasting those types of players.
And I can't tell you how many times we've told a college coach, he's going, not referring to Reese Jones, he being anybody, he is going to help a college program win a lot of games. And that's ultimately what they're looking for.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you had one, that is in the minor leagues now, Vaz. I mean, he's a great example of that. I mean, there's a guy that, played at Vanderbilt, just worked his tail off. I mean, can you tell a little bit about that story? Because that one, that's a great example of what you're talking about and what you're looking for. And you had one, and I'd like to hear a little bit about, that journey that you followed firsthand.
Well, when you coach them, they feel like they're one of yours, that he's one of yours. I mean, you are vested in him and you're pushing for him. And Javi came over as a freshman to Huntsville, because he had started playing some varsity late in his 8th grade year at Grissom.
Right.
And he came to freshman year, and I remember having a conversation with his father, Roberto, obviously well-respected baseball guy, talking about, I hope that this doesn't mess him up in the path that he was down. Basically, he was on the varsity at Grissom. I hope that, that's going to happen at Huntsville. And I told Roberto, I said, and there was no issues whatsoever. I told Roberto, I said, you know what? He'll have every opportunity to earn a varsity spot. That will be up to him. Well, he
Right.
comes in, and Austin, were you a junior or senior that year?
I think I was a senior. Yeah, he was a
He
sophomore.
was a senior.
Yeah.
And so Javi comes in early in practice, and he's just showing out, man. I mean, he's just showing out as a freshman. He's
Right.
getting on base. He's hammering the ball to the backside. He's playing solid defense. His baseball instincts, his IQ are just out of the roof. And
Right.
it was like, this is a no-doubter. So he's on our varsity, and he becomes one of our guys, man. I mean,
Shortstop.
yeah, our starting shortstop, and these seniors accepted him because they knew what he was about. Well, over the course of the next few years, we're pushing Javi to the likes of the Auburns and the Alabamas and all this. And, people look at him and think, I don't know about that. Not sure,
Right.
not sure. But Javi ends up going to LSU Eunice, has 2 great years there. I will backtrack to Javi's senior year. We went up and played Briarcrest Christian. They're from Memphis, Tennessee. We went up and played them at Vanderbilt on a Monday, right before area play started. And Javi absolutely went off. I think it was like 2 for 3 with a double and a triple. He swiped about 4 bags, and was just on that turf up there that fit his game perfect.
Right.
And so, the Vanderbilt coaches said, we're going to follow him. We're going to follow him. We're going to follow him. Well, after 2 years at LSU Eunice, you know where he ends up. He ends up
Right.
at Vandy, and he goes on to have a great career, gets drafted, is now in the Royals organization. He's been playing mostly outfield. He's now, I don't know if the word transitioning is right, but he's now sort of getting some more infield work. And that's one thing about Javi. He could play all 3 outfield positions.
Right.
He can play second. He can play short because he's got plenty of arm strength. But I've got to say this about Javi Vaz. His senior, if you're standing in third base coaching box, you're given signs, whether it's the hitter or whether it's the runner. I gave Javi signs all year, and there wasn't one sign that meant anything to Javi, because I told Javi before his senior year, Javi, I trust you. He knows the counts to run in at first base.
Right.
He knows you don't run 2-0 when a pitcher's struggling, and he may give you a free bag. You don't want to give him a chance to throw you out at second base.
Right.
He knows when to sack bunt. He knows when to drag. He knows when it's time to hit, drive somebody in. We only had one sign with Javi, and that was, and I tried not to say anything to Javi at second base because he had the green light to come to third, still
Right.
third. We had 2 signs. If I was bent over with my hands on my knees, that meant don't come,
Right.
don't come. But if I have my hands on my hips, just, that meant you can come if you want to.
Right.
And again, that goes back to being a baseball player. And that's what Javi Vaz is.
I love that you shared that, because I feel like, as I coach middle school, but when you see someone that is at that level and you realize, like, I'll tell them when to stop because there might be a specific reason that I want them to, not go. But other than that, I trust you. And then those players just continue to flourish when the coach trusts them. So I feel like and I know he would say this if he was here. I mean, that's a big part of his journey, and having that at Huntsville, and then I'm sure it just continued on. I mean, he's a fun player to watch. We see him every once in a while, hitting around town, when it was off season, and he's always very polite, always very personable. I mean, Johnny played with him for a little bit before he moved over to Huntsville. But just a tremendous young man, and to hear that part of his journey, we appreciate you sharing that.
And to wrap it up, people ask me about Javi Vaz. I use one word: electric. That's the word I've always used for Javi Vaz: electric.
Right. Electric, yeah.
I
And
think I
there's not
remember
many of those, so so that means something when you hear that word as a coach, for sure. Well, great. So tell as we kind of wrap this up, tell us a little bit more about, what's coming up, what we could look forward to, especially those who are listening and maybe want to join or learn more as the season progresses.
Yeah, we're going to continue throughout the spring to go to as many games as we can, see as many of the top players as we can, and like I said, being that bridge between the player and the college coach and promoting these players. But at the end of the season is when I guess when the real work starts. When our events will start late May. Our schedule just came out 2 days ago, and we have a series of events called the Summer IDs and Rising Stars IDs. The Summer IDs are events geared for prospects in the freshman class all the way through the senior class. Those are open events. So for this year, it's for the classes of 2026 through 2029s. Those are open events, like I said, and we're going. We have 6 of those this year. We have a Mobile Summer ID, a Birmingham Southern Summer ID, Huntsville Summer ID, Montgomery, Dothan, and Tuscaloosa. And then also with those summer IDs, the Rising Stars IDs, like I mentioned, are a little bit of a different type of event, but they'll be on the same days as the summer IDs. They'll be in the same 6 places. The Rising Stars events are for the prospects in the 2030 to 2031. It's crazy. I'm even saying 2030s and 2031s, but those are a little bit different,
Right.
kind of allowing the younger players to kind of come through and get their first taste of what we offer and a little bit more of an instructional event of what we're looking for and what's a good baseline to start with. But like I said, those 6 dates where we're going to the different parts of the state are our summer IDs and Rising Stars. And then we've talked about our Yellowhammer State Games, which is our sole invite-only event of the summer. That's June 17th and 18th at Sand Mountain Park in Albertville, Alabama. We'll have, I think, what did we settle on? 14 teams, 12 or 14 teams. It'll be a workout on the first showcase on the first day where all those players will go through a workout and then play a game after that night. And then the next day they'll play a game as well. And I think last year we have over close to
171 last year.
171 prospects last year, and then we're adding teams this year. So it should be bigger and even better this year. And then we're looking forward to this summer. But you can find all that information at our website, prepbaseballreport.com/Alabama. It's got all the stuff, all of our events and all of the stuff that we're rolling out with rankings and scout blogs and stuff of that nature.
That's great. We of course go to the site on your website. We go to X or Twitter, and see a lot of that stuff. Are those the 2 places that most people will go and interact with you?
Yeah, we're probably stronger on X, just because that's probably where most of the college coaches are, and that's where we're pumping out all of our videos that we capture from games and showcases. But trying to grow our presence on Instagram and have a small presence on Facebook, but haven't got much into TikTok yet. But we're trying to maybe next year.
Right.
Yeah, I saw the rankings. That's a question I wanted to actually ask earlier before we close. The high school rankings. I was curious, so when you guys weight, the top 25, how does that work? When you see teams, when you see the games, kind of get a sense of how strong these teams are. But does the previous schedules and previous big wins kind of take into effect as well?
Yes. First off, let me make sure.
This is the battle we have
Yeah.
every week.
Not that Austin and I argue, but we have deep conversations about this. There is no ranking system that is perfect. And that's if you're ranking teams in college basketball and college football, high school baseball. There's no ranking system that's perfect when you're talking about players either. People want to know, how do you get your player rankings? Do you put more weight on metrics? Do you put more weight on game? Well, it's a combination of both, as we talked about earlier on this podcast.
Yeah.
But when we get to our teams, we think it is very, very important to take everything into consideration when you're looking at ranking these teams. Let's take, for instance, let's look at 7A. We could look at anything, but, Hewitt-Trussville is ranked number 1 right now, 12-0. Well, that's easy to rank them 12-0 because they're undefeated, but not necessarily they're not ranked number one because they're undefeated. They're ranked number one because they're 12-0 against a very difficult schedule. They're
Right.
playing other high-end 7A and 6A teams. You know, on top of that, let's jump down to 5A, and this is where Austin and I had a really, really in-depth conversation this week. We think American Christian, a 5A team, is one of the top 15 teams in the state, regardless of class. And they
Right.
can really, really hit, headlined by Eric Hines that we mentioned earlier, going to Alabama. They lost 3 games last week. They went 0-3. Well, probably someone says, they shouldn't be ranked number one. The team behind them went 2-0. They're sitting at 12-1. American Christian's at 13-5. Well, we kept American Christian at number one and kept Springville at number 2. Neither one of them are slight, but the teams that American Christian has played and beat and been beat by gives them so much credibility. I mean, they're 13-5. I would say probably 4 of their losses are to 6A and 7A schools. I know one came to a number 2, 4A. Yeah. But American Christian has really played the gauntlet of schools, so far this season. So, it would have been easy just to base everything off record and move them down this week, but we kept them at number one because we still think they're the favorite in 5A. Now, that's all going to play itself out. Now,
Right.
we also look at, who is Team A throwing against Team B? Is this Team B's 4th game in 2 days where they're throwing their number 5 arm, and then
Right.
Team A is throwing their dude that can beat anybody in the state? We take all of that into consideration. And again, there's no perfect ranking system, but we do spend a lot of time on our team rankings. And, that's what we get put out there. Austin, you have anything to add to that? I mean,
Yeah, it's just I think we're not ranking resumes, but we're looking at resumes, kind of factoring in all the things that you said. Who threw against who? What game of the week was it? You look at box score. Did one team have 5 errors in the end that was uncharacteristic of themselves?
Right.
Just kind of factoring all things in and doing our due diligence, because we know it's important to teams and fans and players. And I can go back and remember when I was in high school, and I'm sure Johnny can too. I love each week looking and see where where we were ranked. I have that. I know what it feels like to be a player of that team, and just putting in that effort and doing the due diligence, like we said, of trying to find the best 10 teams and ranking them accordingly up to that point.
but the best thing about it is it's all going to play out on the field.
Right.
I mean, and someone can make us look wrong. I mean, and if they do, kudos to them. If they prove us wrong that we don't have them ranked
Right.
and they finish in the top 4 in the state, then that's great for them. And we don't take any offense to that whatsoever.
And same with the player rankings as well. Same thing could be said with the player rankings as well as with the team.
You mentioned a 5A team playing in, heavy competition, 6A and 7A schools that were, strong. And you actually have them on the list. And I immediately thought of some of the best games Grissom had played when I was there against them. I think we played them about 2 or 3 times in the time I was there. But they always gave us some great games. Like, it was just always neck and neck. It was Madison Academy. They're 3A, and I don't know if that's changed.
They're 5A now.
Okay, they moved up a good bit now, but
And they are a threat to win it all in 5A. They are good.
yeah, I remember. I think at the time they may have been 3A because they were
Yeah.
they were a little smaller, but they. I just remember. God, they had some guys that were 2-sport athletes, and I think one of them was going to, like, Auburn to play football, and no, that's
Always strong. Always strong.
that rings so true. The 3, 4, 5A schools can compete and stay up there with the 6 and 7A powerhouses as well. It's anybody's ball game.
And you know what? Listen here, Adam Mosley, people thought we hated each other because we competed against each other, but we're good friends and we talk weekly now. But
Right.
I felt at Huntsville High, we scheduled the hardest people we could schedule. Adam Mosley did the same thing. And I
Definitely.
think it's a testament to those coaches that will go out and schedule those to schedule those games to prepare their team for when it counts, because nothing counts until that first area game. And as a coach, your job is to get your team prepared, and so that they won't see, you don't want to go face a bunch of 72, 76 mile an hour arms, and then your first area play you're facing 86 and your kids haven't seen it yet.
Right.
And so those coaches, you don't want to punish them for scheduling like that, because, and then on the side of that, we enjoy those games. That's the kind of games we want to go see.
No question. That's a great point. I always admire that about both of you and the coaches that do that, because, some coaches, you may take the different stance. They want to, build up the record, and but I think, like you said, it kind of plays out at the end of the season. If you're battle tested, then you're going to see that. And I would tell Adam, I'm in a fantasy baseball league with him, and I tell him some of the best, jobs that you did, were teams that you say, wow, how did you get so far with that team when you didn't have necessarily a D1 arm, or a couple of D1 arms, or big bats. I mean, I remember one year they had, the team had, I think, 5 home runs the entire season, and yet, they went to the Elite Eight. So yeah, I always admired when you went after the competition, were battle tested, and then you could, show it, down the line.
Well, speaking of Adam Mosley scheduling, look at Hoover this year. I mean,
Right.
we've got them ranked with the 4-9 record. And 5 of those losses came to California teams. I mean, that's
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And that sounds like Adam. He wants to get the guys, ready, and I'm sure that will benefit him in the long run. So guys, can't thank you enough for jumping on with us. We've learned a lot. I hope our listeners have learned a lot, about, what you guys are doing, where they can find you. I think it's important that if you really love baseball in Alabama, that people check you out and learn about, all the different things. There's so much. If you could spend an entire afternoon on your site and looking at the rankings and all the different stats and all the different metrics. So we appreciate you guys coming on.
Yeah. We're grateful we get to use, the platform as well to research the players, and, tell who's popped right now, and, who to keep an eye out, especially uncommitted players that they're just looking to sign somewhere.
Yeah, we appreciate you having us on. It's, I like David, I know we both have watched your stuff, and know a few of the guys who've come on, who you guys have had on with, Drew Talley and Justin Foscue. And I don't know how we follow those guys up, but we tried our best. But once again, appreciate you having us on.
Yes, thank you so much. It was a pleasure to get on here and talk with you. And, we appreciate, we have a love for baseball and appreciate your love for baseball as well. So thanks again for having us on.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.